Hi, my name is Mark Parmenter. I'm a software development engineer at Amazon. I've been a key part of migrating two companies, PureChat and Ruby, into Amazon Web Services. These migration experiences have borne so much fruit that they surpassed even my wildest expectations. I've learned many lessons along the way. Today, I will share some reasons to choose cloud computing and some ways to do it smarter, faster, and cheaper. For the purposes of this talk, I'll be using the phrases the cloud, or cloud computing. What I mean by this is utilizing one of the big three cloud computing providers, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud Platform. So, why should you move toward cloud computing? There are many reasons, but for me the most significant reason is that cloud computing brings agility. Imagine you're using your own server closet, or running inside of a small data center. What would it take to provision a new server and set it up with all of your software to scale horizontally? When you need new hardware, it needs to be ordered, delivered, physically installed, networked, and then have the OS installed, hardened, and only then have your software installed. I've experienced this at a small data center, and the turnaround time was typically around 2 weeks. Contrast this with the cloud, where with just a few clicks, new resources can be spun up in minutes. Even better, I've configured them to automatically scale out based on application utilization. Cloud computing brings agility in scaling out. What would it take to change the hardware to have more memory, disk space, or compute power? Again, you're talking about acquiring physical assets, probably a server, coming out of commission for a bit, replacing or upgrading it, and then putting it back into the physical and network infrastructure. Again, this is just a few clicks in the cloud. Cloud computing brings agility in scaling up. How much time does it take to keep your servers patched? Do you know what's faster than patching a server? Not having a server to patch in the first place. I've replaced APIs with serverless functions and compute instances with containers to run my applications without having any servers at all. Running your applications in this way offers many advantages, one of them being you do not need to worry about patching anything. Cloud computing brings agility in reducing or eliminating the time spent patching your servers. How are you deploying your application code? Have you built your own homegrown, automated, zero downtime deployment mechanisms? I know I have, and it was painful and time-consuming. What a breath of fresh air to find that this is a solved problem in the cloud. Cloud computing brings agility in DevOps. These are just some of the many examples of the subtle agility that cloud computing brings. Now let's look at how to do cloud computing smarter, faster, and cheaper. A study from Dell showed that companies that invest in cloud computing enjoy up to 53% faster revenue growth than their competitors. Cloud computing allows your business to operate smarter. Let's look at some examples of how. Before PureChat's AWS migration, we had 27 physical servers in a small data center. Initially, we went with a mostly lift and shift approach, basically migrating each server to a compute instance. There are many downsides associated with managing your own instances, however. You'll need to do your own patching, ensure high availability by clustering across availability zones, networking, and auth, to name a few. I quickly determined that switching to AWS-hosted services made so much more sense. It takes you out of the administration business and lets you concentrate on building great software. For example, I migrated us off of our RabbitMQ instance and into Amazon MQ. This gave us high availability, increased throughput, and removed the need for me to patch and update any servers. This is one of many types of these conversions that I performed. Here's a list of some others. Serverless functions, container services, pub/sub, queues, object storage, load balancers, SQL databases, NoSQL databases, in-memory key value stores. In addition, many of these hosted services have some hidden built-in benefits. For example, AWS application load balancers can do SSL termination for you, and AWS manages and automatically renews the certificates so you don't have to. Amazon RDS allows you to restore a backup copy of a database to an exact point in the past that you could use for testing or querying, and you don't need to be an expert in order to set up your databases for high availability. This is just an additional option you select, It could not be any easier than that. Hosted services let you do cloud computing smarter. CloudWatch is a fantastic tool that can be used for logging, monitoring, and alerting. You can even publish your own custom events in your applications and alarm on them to know if something is going wrong. Using CloudWatch for monitoring and alerting will help you find and fix issues before your customers report them to you. We did just that at PureChat. We published metrics so that we could visualize and monitor key performance indicators. Then we alarmed when the metrics crossed certain thresholds. On more than one occasion, these alarms notified us that there was an issue so that we could immediately go in and fix things before customers even reported that anything was wrong. Metrics let you do cloud computing smarter. At one company I worked for, the main production Postgres database was accidentally deleted in Amazon RDS due to human error. We immediately realized what had happened, and we were able to restore the database using the most recent point-in-time backup built into Amazon RDS. Thanks to this built-in feature, we were only down for about 15 minutes. Automated database backups let you do cloud computing smarter. One company I worked at was taken offline by their data center being infected with ransomware. This simply does not happen at the big cloud computing companies. Their data centers have physical security, redundant power systems, top-of-the-line firewalls, isolated networks, and so on. Do not wait until you have to pay the price for a security breach in your server cabinet or small data center. Better security is a part of cloud computing smarter. These are a few examples of how cloud computing allows you to work smarter. Now let's dive into how to do it faster. When I first started building things in the cloud, I stood up all of the resources in the UI. Then I went to a talk where a speaker talked about the value of infrastructure as code. We went back to the office, tore everything down, and rebuilt it all from scratch using CloudFormation templates, using what I had learned. Doing this from the start can be so much faster than standing up infrastructure by hand. You can use pre-existing templates to accelerate creating your complex infrastructural components. They also allow you to apply version control to your infrastructure, which is quite powerful. Then, when you need to create a new environment for dev, beta, production, or in another region, you already have all the templates in place to build an accurate replica of the environment. Leverage tools like Cloud Development Kit, Terraform, and CloudFormation. Infrastructure as code lets you do cloud computing faster. Cloud computing companies like AWS are so interested in earning your business that they have tremendous resources and programs to help accelerate and ensure the success of your migration. They will offer to help you profile your existing infrastructure, propose new architecture in their cloud environment, and subsidize internal and external consultants to assist you in your migration. They also provide rich tools that can speed up your migration. At PureChat, we utilized one such tool called the Data Migration Service to migrate our production SQL Server database with close to zero downtime. This was a critical piece of minimizing our downtime during PureChat's migration into AWS. It allowed us to essentially mirror our database into another environment in real time. Then when we were ready to cut over, we turned off the old database and our data center and switched over to the new one in AWS. These migration programs, tools, and resources allow you to migrate to cloud computing faster. I previously mentioned some of the agility that utilizing compute instances can bring when you need to scale up or out. You do not need to think as hard about what your traffic will look like. You can just scale it up and out, turn it on, see what the utilization looks like, then scale it back down and in. This reduces your time to market. Quickly modifying your scale allows you to do cloud computing faster. We have seen some examples of how to do cloud computing smarter and faster. Next, let's look at how to do it cheaper. When we first migrated into AWS, we were intentionally over-provisioned, and our costs were higher than we would have liked in the first month. Over the next 3 months or so, I utilized some of the techniques that I will outline here and reduced our cloud spend by 50%. First, let's consider some of the hidden costs of not migrating into the cloud. Many companies have a large staff of IT and DBAs in order to handle the administrative overhead associated with patching, networking, clustering, and the like. When you use hosted services, the cloud provider takes care of this mostly for you. Your software developers may be pulled into this type of patching, networking, clustering work as well, as I often have been, instead of building the next great app or feature. These are some of the hidden costs of not migrating into the cloud. Auto-scaling groups are wonderful. They're a great way to align your capacity with your usage. They also allow you to meet elastic demand. They can help you keep your costs down because you do not need to be constantly over-provisioned. At PureChat, I A/B tested different instance types to minimize our costs for each of our APIs. Eventually, I settled on the right instance types for each and tuned our servers to scale with traffic from a low of 2 instances during low usage periods to about 17 instances during high usage periods. Consider how this would have worked at a data center. You would have had to over-provision and would have no capacity to handle additional traffic if it suddenly came to your application. Auto-scaling lets you do cloud computing cheaper. When you migrate servers to compute instances, you can over-provision them and make sure that they can handle the load. Then you can quickly scale them down to right-size your instances. When I've done this in the past, I had confidence that my services would run well when I turned them on, and then I scaled them down once I was more comfortable with the usage and metrics. Right-sizing your instances goes a long way to help you do cloud computing cheaper. Once you've dialed in your usage with auto-scaling groups and right-sized your instances, you should have a good idea about what your resource utilization looks like. This can be a good time to further optimize costs. Reserved instances and compute savings plans are excellent ways to reduce your infrastructure costs. By making a commitment to spending at a certain level, instance family, or utilizing spot instances, you can reduce your compute spend by up to 90%. Again, they make this so easy. Utilizing reserved instances, compute savings plans, and spot instances lets you do cloud computing cheaper. As if that were not enough, AWS and the like are so eager for you to become their customer that they will typically subsidize your migration if you discuss it with them. At every company I've been a part of, my AWS representatives have been more than willing to provide credits, tools, and resources to help us do cloud computing cheaper. Today, we looked at some obvious and not so obvious advantages of cloud computing, and we've only just scratched the surface. We've learned about how to do cloud computing smarter with hosted services, metrics, disaster recovery, and security. We've learned how to do cloud computing faster by adopting infrastructure as code, taking advantage of the resources available to ensure rapid and successful migrations, and how quickly you can scale horizontally and vertically. We've learned about how to do cloud computing cheaper by utilizing reserved instances, compute savings plans, spot instances, auto-scaling groups, right-sizing your instances, and seeking out credits for migration. So what's stopping you? Go build amazing things out in the cloud, smarter, faster, and cheaper.